I need to take some time and talk about these drones that are being sighted everywhere. All the areas surrounding where I live. I actually saw some of them on the way home yesterday, and I have some anxiety over them. And I'm trying to just vet that out. I want to talk about that in a moment. I did a remote viewing session this morning that I want to share portions of it of that I have some data that I've been back and forth on sharing. So I want to talk about that with all of you as well. For those, just to timestamp this, hold on, my phone's plugged in. Today is Friday. Here's a glare, sorry. December 13th, 2024. It's 8:45 p.m. here in Pennsylvania. These drones, I did a show for the Future Forecast podcast, which other podcast I do at the Future Forecasting Group. Hasn't been released yet, but on December 3rd, I was looking at Cliff High's data. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, you can check it out at futureforecastinggroup.com. And I'm sure there'll be portions of that podcast on YouTube. But I guess back in 2009, 2010, Cliff High, he is the founder of the creator of the WebBot program. Cliff High works closely with the Future Forecasting Group. And what it does, and I can't fully explain what it is that it does. He has a way of predicting the future by identifying through an algorithm trends in human speech patterns on the internet. I think that's how it works. I haven't interviewed Cliff yet, but I'd love to get him on my show and talk with him. Um, so he's predicted future events this way. He predicted, one of the big predictions was the crash of 2008. So he started getting this big event coming, and he tasked the remote viewing team like 4 or 5 years ago to look at, what's going to be he called it the temporal marker to let us know that we're about to enter into this event. And so he tasked the team, they were blind to it. I was the debriefer on this. I didn't work the target. I was the one that was going through the data and interviewing all the viewers about this. So they were blind to the target. All they knew was the target ID number. And they all brought back this podcast interview, basically with Donald Trump and Joe Rogan was the conclusion of the data. And this was back, like I said, 4 or 5 years ago. It was during the time when Trump was running with Biden and like the last election that Trump lost. And I remember thinking as I'm watching this, like, oh, yeah, this is definitely going to happen. Trump's definitely going to be on the Joe Rogan podcast. It's the perfect time. He's campaigning. That interview never happened. And Rogan, for years after that, was saying, like, I'll never have the man on the show. Well, fast forward to what, a month ago now, 2 months ago, and Trump was on the Joe Rogan podcast. So we're looking at, okay, is this it? Is this a temporal marker in time? Well, what did that mean? Cliff said it was like the introduction to sci-fi world. He said that there's going to be um, 39 days to melee is what he was calling it. And he was talking about some kind of like UAPs or UFOs in the sky and possible conflict in the sky. Looking at some of the future forecasters, one of the things they do at Future Forecasting Group, I know many of you have found me through Future Forecasting, but those of you that haven't, one of the things they do with remote viewing is every month they look ahead into the future. And I think they started doing something looking ahead to each quarter. So in September, they looked out like what's the rest of the year going to hold. And the viewers were bringing back drone stuff. Viewers were bringing back some concerning things in the area. What I'm gathering from people behind the scenes, piecing together data, is that we're moving towards some kind of revelation. Not in the biblical sense. I don't even know if it's in the UFO sense in terms of alien. This doesn't feel alien to me, or whatever is behind these UAPs. This might be an advanced tech kind of thing or an AI kind of thing. Um, It sounds like we are in that era. We're moving towards something, some kind of revelation or something that sounds big. And that would coincide with what Cliff High was talking about as well. I woke up this morning and I just felt like I need to do a remote viewing. Now, last night, and I'm going to do a podcast for my own show for the Secret Podcast about this as well. I had remote viewer Josh Maitland on the Future Forecast podcast last night, and we had an amazing conversation about the telepathy tapes. We also touched on the drones. So I'm really worked up. There's a lot of information that's valuable to me right now that's been coming in. I got some stuff going on. That's really, it's just one of those download moments, right? Where I know I'm receiving information and I have to now go through the process of unpacking it, trying to understand what it means. simultaneously while things are happening in the world around me. This drone scenario is exactly why I stopped watching the news. I'm getting wrapped up in a sense like I did before COVID, and then I did again as the Ukraine war was kicking off. This is a challenge for some remote viewers. I'm talking about myself when you look at the future. Um, and then you start to overthink things. And I've been very good at grounding myself, but like before COVID, I was hyper focused on it and my anxiety built. And for the Ukraine war, we were getting data early on before that. I hyper focused on it. And then like I just got all this anxiety over, what was coming and what it meant for the world. And I'm starting to feel that now with this drone stuff. And it doesn't mean that it's gonna impact me and all like drones are gonna land in my backyard. Although someone close to me did, close in relationship and close in proximity, just texted me about an hour ago and said a drone flew over their home spraying something. So that's concerning to me. I don't know what's going on with these drones. My feeling is that they're being sighted over some critical infrastructure. Could be some kind of reconnaissance pattern. Um, but the government response also has me concerned. I mean, there's so many of these things from what it sounds like, and there's probably a lot of reports too that are false, that are hype. You just don't know what to trust anymore. But I saw them from a distance last night. Things I've never seen before. It was just lights in the sky. I'll share a picture here that I took. But I saw them coming home from work, and they were far in the distance. But I definitely saw what people are reporting. And again, I don't think. I mean, it's fun to go down the sci-fi route and say, "Oh man, this is like close encounters, and pretty soon they're going to land, and we're going to know." I don't think that's what we're dealing with. I think this is some kind of Earth-based technology. But I think it just feels big to me. So I'm processing all this stuff, and however, I woke up this morning and about once a month, every month and a half, I do a remote viewing target. And the purpose of the target, I've talked about this before, is I'm going to connect with my future consciousness and gather information I need to know. This historically has been about my personal life. It's not world events. I know I did get bleed over when the remote viewing team also was looking at a future-based target, but they all brought back the Hamas attack on Israel. I did a personal session around that time, and I ended up getting some stuff that was tied into that attack as well that didn't make sense. So I have all this anxiety today, and I started a session, and I just start going down and getting this data, and I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. Like the session just didn't feel good. I was getting this anxiety. I didn't like the way I was feeling. And then sometimes I get in my head because it's a personal session. Obviously, there's aspects of this project that are front loaded because I know it's about my life. I just felt off. So I did a few pages of it and I stopped it and I went about my day. And then about 3 hours later, which I never do in the location that I was in, it was a very busy, crowded location. I pulled out my session and I did a second session and I felt pretty dialed in. And the information I got, it wasn't stuff about my day-to-day life. And that's what I'm going to share with all of you right now. I want to give the disclaimer. This is a front-loaded thing. My anxiety's been building, for the last day and a half over these drones. This 100% could be my imagination. 100%. My intention, however, was not to look at the drones. There's things in my personal life and my spiritual life that I explore in these sessions, and that's consciously, at least, that's where I want it to be. I think, which is why I was getting anxiety because I kept getting data on this stuff. And I'm like, this doesn't exist in my life. What the heck's going on? Um, so I'm sharing this in part because talking about it in this format and sharing it, it does help alleviate my anxiety. I suspect that part of this is my ego and my FOMO saying, well, what if I'm right and I never put this out there? I try to separate from that ego piece. I just want to talk about it. I just want to put it out there and get other people's opinions. But I want this data to be taken with a grain of salt because this might be just a metaphor for something in my life. This may have nothing to do with the drones. What put me over the edge is the person I spoke to when they said they sprayed something seems a little bit similar to what I had in my data this morning. And I didn't know they were spraying. I have been reading reports saying that there is spray that's coming about. So there's stuff in my session that I wasn't aware of that may be happening as I have since started digging into it. So let me share what I have and we'll talk about it. Now, I'm not going to share my full session, obviously, because some of this stuff is personal to me. But at this point, I started going through, I was getting information about what's important, most important for me to know. I had this ideogram here and I was getting a structure and then like open space and energetics. Moved into S2, movement, energetics, something that was slow moving, soft, dark, and gray. And I got this big slow moving cloud, not a crowd. And I got the AOL of a storm and it was overtake or overtaken. And I felt this, like after I drew it, I was like, wow, there's energy or electricity in that storm. It felt electronic, like a giant cloud with energetics. It feels tingly and sparking. I had these just bolts of electricity in there. Now that's a life. That might be me. I don't know. Um, and I had the word scanning that I underlined. I never made it to stage 5 because I got interrupted. But as if it scans the life, causing physical electrical sensations in the body. This feels cleansing, removing or stripping away blockages. Life feels physically cold. What's the purpose? It's moving, looking, searching, exploring. It felt intelligent. Pattern recognition. I had an AOL of species, a giant energetic cloud. Describe the impact on the life. And I had a sense of fear here. Wow, it was exhilarating. Stripped naked. And then I had this aspect of like hairlessness, which was weird. An energetic removal or buzzing, like this field pulses life's electromagnetic field or pushes life's electromagnetic field off for a moment. Raw vulnerability, but then the field returns. There's a clearer feeling here, but why? Not much of a why. Life was just there and it happened. Okay. I took a break and then I went on to some other things, but then I came here to my next session, which I did a little bit later. And I had this describe the cause of the cause or the source of the energy. I was getting these energetics in my previous sketch here. And I felt that it was flowing in a winding landscape, peaceful, hilly, somewhere in nature. Okay. A hillside with a path or a stream running through it. Beautiful. I had people playing that felt like children. That looks like a ball they're throwing in between. Something was occupied. And then this energetic wave passes over them. I wondered, are they protected? They see it. They see an energetic event above the sky. Feels like daytime. Is it a borealis, I wondered? Unexpected, sudden, beautiful. And I had these children, and there was possibly a barrier over them, and the energy was passing over them, going to the left on the screen as you're looking at it. The energy felt like it was warmer. It had heat. It had a signature to it. And then there was a larger life that was moving away quickly. These two life forms here, their gazes were fixed upwards. This life was moving in the same direction the energy was going, which makes me wonder, was there an event over to the right, and this life's moving away from that event, which would be the same direction that the energy is traveling? There is a feeling of a need to take action, but not sure what to do. And that's pretty much where I left it because then oh wait, nope, hold on. Let me bring this back. I thought that was the end. I thought I got into personal stuff there, but no, I didn't. There is more to that. I tried to figure it out a little bit more. What action steps should the viewer be doing? Because again, I thought this was a personal target. I got this ideogram here and I felt this motion and like this structure, this movement, life and energetics. The movement of an object. It was fast and quick, like a streak with a whoosh sound, bright, nighttime. And I had an AOL of jets scrambled. This feels confusing and conflicting, as if life is being pulled by smaller lives or energies. There may be a second life, and they are both pulling back on the energies. A third energy or movement goes past them. So again, the theme is there's energies moving. If you break this to basic gestalts, right? On the first sketch up here, I had two life forms stationary with energy moving over, and then a larger life form moving in the opposite direction. Same thing here. I had this event up in the sky or up above, and then I had this, I didn't identify this as a life, just tumultuous, fast, rapid, whatever this is. I had the energies are going the wrong way. Like these two things are going this way, and there were two life forms trying to pull them back, and then this thing was moving fast in the other direction. Um, I don't I don't know what it means. Um, was I was I front loaded with drone stuff? Yeah, that was on my mind. So it's highly possible this is completely fabricated. I share this, um, as a remote viewer, as somebody who's still, I consider myself, I'll probably always consider myself a student of remote viewing. I'm still training, I'm still learning, but I want to record these things. When these big events happen like this, and you try to do a remote viewing session, the guys that I work with talk about all the time how hard it is when there's so much noise to quiet that noise. You're gonna look at world events and like the election's coming up, there's a war going on. Like obviously you could sit down and sketch something that's relevant to that and be like, oh, we got it. That wasn't my intention. I was trying to look at my own life. Um, but that doesn't mean my subconscious had other things. Maybe I'm just trying to process like all the what ifs that always run through my mind. But I had anxiety all day. And I think that, like I said, that's why I've disconnected from the news. That's why I don't do world events sessions anymore, because then I would just scan the news all the time and I'd get so worked up with anxiety. Um, so I've moved away from it. But I felt it was important to finish that piece of the session to figure out what was going on and now to put it in a video and to share it. Um, but I don't know what it means. It might be nothing. There might not be a cloud of energy related to this at all. And then, we're just looking at my ego and my FOMO here, but I wanted to put it out there and see where it goes. And I'd love to hear your input on what this data could potentially mean. But again, it was could have just been an off front loaded imagination thing as I'm trying to process what's going on in the world, which sometimes isn't easy. But I look at this and I really feel like I don't want to contribute to the anxiety and the fear. Um, I do have anxiety over this. Uh, and that doesn't mean like, oh my God, the world's ending. But it's a little bit strange. My mind runs a bunch of different scenarios. What if it's a foreign adversary? What if it's UAP, non-human? What if it's our government? Any one of those possibilities could be massive, good or bad. It could be good or bad or indifferent. It might not impact my life at all, other than that's interesting. So I want to ground myself and say, like, COVID seemed really, really scary, and it was really, really scary at times. But I'm here and I'm fine, right? We weathered that storm. And there are people that we lost, but we weathered that storm. Um, so we'll get through this too, whatever it is. I'd love to hear your thoughts, friends. Um, anything else comes through, I'll be sure to share it. Thanks for watching.